sanctify you holy.
Well, thank you to our audience who is trickling in at the moment. My name is Melissa Lyde, and I'm the founder of Alfreda Cinema, which has been an ongoing series, Black film series operating in and around New York City. And largely our programs focus on Black women's stories, spotlighting Black women filmmakers, especially. And I'm really excited because we have an event coming up in December at the Anthology Film Archives. It's our first program there. So definitely hope you all can come out. But tonight is another week of conversations that I've been hosting, following the idea of, just really chatting with our local or our friends of Alfreda Cinema to really discuss the importance of a Black woman-owned arts and entertainment venue that really focuses on Black films. And joining me tonight is Rochelle Kwan, our very first donor to our GoFundMe campaign. Rochelle is also an incredible community organizer and arts initiative um, or initiator, at least, really spearheading a Chinatown block party, really dance experience about every week or every month during the summer.
Every month. Oh God, don't scare me like that.
It feels so frequent, actually. Like we're talking
It
about.
does.
So
Yeah.
she leads the Chinatown block parties as well as, and I believe you are also a oral historian or archivist.
Yeah.
Or tell us
It's
more
more
about
like
yourself.
the educating part. Oh yeah, totally. Well, I'm so glad to be here. Yeah, I am an oral history I'm Rochelle. Hey. I am I wear lots of hats, but my main thing is that I'm an oral history educator, and that's less about collecting oral histories, but actually teaching folks within to really do oral history within their own communities, with their loved ones, with their families, their friends. And also the other side of it is also, collecting oral histories, producing art out of them, animations, stories, radio shows, and yeah, and also a brand new DJ, just like Melissa here. It was like Melissa and I met on the dance floor, and so it was like obviously the next step was that we would both become DJs, and now, yeah, we're both DJs, and I've been inheriting family record collections from my neighbors here in Chinatown and DJing all of that at our block parties.
And I gotta say, she's very much in demand, so don't sleep at all. But not, we didn't just meet on the dance floor. We just so happened to be the two most, I think, free spirited dancers. Like
Yeah,
it's one thing to just engage, but when you could kind of have this sort of like just magnetic chemistry with someone, on a dance floor, that is really
yeah,
just so much more than an encounter. It's just a fluid sort of cross vibration, and that's what I felt with Rochelle on the dance floor. So really
oh,
to have this honor to sit and share some time and words with you, it's such a privilege. And I gotta say, in just being the first person to support the GoFundMe, just as I was kind of like over it, but that first dollar, that first $50 was like a yes, you can do this. So thank you so much for
yeah.
the support, and thank you for
Oh, of course, of course. I think I remember like you posting it on Facebook, and within like 2 minutes, I was like, yeah, obviously, of course. Because I think like I had heard you talking a little bit about it for a while, and I think I can't remember if I had checked out like one of the first films before then or after then, but I've been seeing you like throw your heart into this, and like I think so much of the spaces that I'm trying to build in Chinatown, especially with the block parties, is like just having a space for people to be together and have like and enjoy and learn and just love on art together. So so much inspiration from you, really.
Oh, I appreciate that. Space is so important. And, as much as people are so kind of wrapped up in this tech like environment or work sort of ethic, or really just like thinking that tech is the kind of the future for so many, emerging workers, or, yeah, really wage slaves in a sense. But, um, but,
You're right.
but that really puts a sort of um, damper, I guess, for people who are looking to physically make space, for community work, for arts, for, just work that is enriching to the soul and doesn't necessarily require you to alleviate your pockets necessarily, even though Alfreda Cinema is a for-profit company.
You gotta have money to have the space. That's just the real thing
Yeah,
today.
that's the reality. But so
Yeah.
I appreciate that, and you've recently, been able to move into a space. What was that like? What does that feel like?
Yeah, I mean, it's a total game changer. Like now I can get dressed every day and walk 5 minutes to work, and so many people walk by the space every day. Like I have an older neighbor who brings me lunch every single day. Like I haven't bought lunch in the past 3 weeks because it's just he's on his way to work and he's like, yeah, I'll stop and have lunch with you. And I feel like that's what is so important about having a space is that there is there is a place for you to not only like have these conversations with people, but to see people pass by, they see you, they see that you're here and staying. And I feel like so I think a lot about the fact that like we started first from dancing together and like I know I'm like it takes me a few times to of seeing people before I like take up the courage to like actually say anything to them. But even just seeing them in the space over and over again, I'm like, oh, they're always here. Like I'm eventually gonna, want to say hi to them and want to know who they are. And I feel like that's um, what space can do for people and for groups and for communities is like just become familiar and comfortable with people, whether you know them or not. And then eventually, hopefully, you do know them.
It's certainly a staple within within your just the neighborhood you live in. I think space in general, but to really focus on arts, I think it's such a hard initiative because it's intangible, but it's just as equally as enriching as anything else I think that's going on with your life. But you have very much focused on your just being within Chinatown, and it's also such a historical neighborhood, a historically Chinese neighborhood, obviously, and they've been just able to really have this wonderful staying power. You know, do you think you could kind of talk about why it's so important for you to stay in Chinatown and to be present there, especially as a millennial? You know,
Yeah. Such a big question. I mean, I guess I'll just start from like why I love being here. I love being here um, because I feel like every person that I run into and know in the neighborhood, they have a totally different idea of this place. It's like, when you think of Chinatown, you think of Chinatown as one Chinatown, but there's like so many Chinatowns within this neighborhood. And I think that's what's so interesting about me being a young person moving into Chinatown is like, yeah, this neighborhood has been here for a really, really long time, but it also has changed for decades, you know, and I remember like one of my older neighbors that I live in the building with, she's like 70 something, and she was like, what I really like about your block parties is that there has never been like anything like that here in Chinatown before. And I feel like that made me feel like, you know, there are a lot of people here in Chinatown who are, you know, rightfully so, like very protective of the neighborhood, of like something new coming in, like we don't know who they are, we don't, you know, because it's just like growing up, they grew up with like just knowing everybody in their vicinity. Um, but you know, people like new things come in the neighborhood, and it continues to like regenerate because people have been here for a really long time. And it, the reason that Chinatown, I think, has like continued to exist is because it has continued to evolve with the world around it too. It's not like it looks like the same way that it's first started. And you know, when it first started, Chinatown were started because Chinese people were not allowed to own land, and so they like grouped together into one place where like white folks put them, and created their own economy, created their own like way of existing and all of their own rules. And you still see that here in Chinatown today, like the way that it's like mostly cash, you know, and people still like living on that infrastructure that was built from its very beginnings. And it's like, to me, to see a place that came out of like being excluded and seeing so much, like they built their own stuff, like they built everything that they needed within the space, so that they could continue to evolve and change and like still be here, I think is really, really amazing. And what I also love about living here in Chinatown is that like Chinatown was not always just Chinese. It's not just Chinese people living in this area. Like the first Black landowners owned land in Chinatown, like on Bayard Street. That was where the first Black landowner in New York had their first piece of land. And Domingo Anthony, like that, like knowing that history and knowing that there has been like many iterations of Chinatown, even before it was Chinatown, is like keeps me constantly learning when I'm here. It's like, this is not the place that I moved into, and it will never be exactly this way ever again. And it shouldn't be that way.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I just, you know, I want to be in Brownsville, which is a largely Black neighborhood. And I have to say, you know, it's so, it's, I don't know, like, I guess after seeing so many Black neighborhoods in Brooklyn, especially, sort of, you know, get pretty much wiped out, I have to say how much I just admire the staying power that Chinatown has been able to just forge, you know, and continue forging ahead. I mean, I've never seen such a, oh, well, I guess, you know, there are neighborhoods where it's like a total, you know, it's nothing's gonna happen to it. Like it always stay the same. I mean, but it's still so much admirable that, you know, it's such a large piece of, or just a beautiful area also. And you see, you know, the community coming together to prevent like erosion, in a sense of erosion by way of like prisons, or, you know, just businesses that don't necessarily are there to be conducive to the environment, or really the people around it. And I gotta say how just, you know, exquisitely unified it feels. And I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I think there's parts of it where I'm like, yeah, I love that, you know, I can talk with my neighbors who are totally different from me, and there is like a rallying around Chinatown. I think but I also think that like a lot of our work here in Chinatown, specifically with the folks that I organize with at Think Chinatown, um, it's really thinking about like there are so many layers to Chinatown. There's even so many languages, like dialects happening. Everything that we do has to be um, available in English, Mandarin, Cantonese, Toisan, now like Fujianese. And it's like, there's so, and every, like I can't cross Bowery and buy any of my groceries because I can't speak Mandarin. And like, so that's why I feel sick. Like I can like find my way throughout Chinatown when it's like on the other side of Bowery, on north, or not north, but like around Canal Street. But once it gets to like East Broadway, it's a totally different place. And I feel like so much of our work is really trying to find what those connections are. Like, what does make this Chinatown, other than the fact that like we are all like so many of us are technically Chinese people, but I don't know anything about what it's like to be Fujianese and like come from a totally different part of the country. And like, yeah, I go back and forth about it because there's so many different layers to it. And at the same time, it's like, yes, Chinatown is still here. You're right. Like, it's still, even with all those layers, it's still somehow um, a home for a lot of Chinese folks and other folks too.
Well, I guess I'm thinking that the block parties, which have gotten so much beautiful press, I think this summer, this was the second year you were able to complete, right? This is the second year of block party.
Yes. Yeah.
So you got,
Yeah.
but and I'm guessing that the block parties have, the music is drawing people in from all walks of life, not just, the locals, but also tourists. Um, I myself came out and it was such a beautiful day,
Yeah.
rain. And the music was just, totally stellar. And you also, it seems like you also work to bring in as many diasporic, Asian diasporic DJs, specifically women. Can you kind of talk about like why that's important to address, especially in Chinatown, where I guess it's funny because especially in like the our music community, you have such a large presence of Japanese, musicians and DJs, um, and but I feel like they definitely make their culture known within the space. But like Chinese Americans, like you kind of talk about their sort of relationship to house music and disco and just that funk. Because I feel like you're definitely making that a thing for Chinatown.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, whenever I do the block parties, so yeah, we just finished year two. Last year was like totally DIY. It was just, okay, I'm like bringing my turntables downstairs and can y'all show up for it, please? Like, I just want to listen to music with my friends. And um, and this year, like, we got funding, so I could actually like bring other people on, and I could bring other DJs to come play with me. And I feel like there was a lot that went into who I was choosing to bring. It was, first of all, it was like my friends. I was like, these are my friends, and I want that. I just want to DJ with my friends. Um, the other part is like it's just like there's so many white dude DJs. Like, I'm just gonna be real. There's like so many white dude DJs, and I am pretty tired of it. Like, there's so many of my friends are like dabbling in music, or like have been professionals in DJing for decades. And like, I don't know. I feel like they tell me so much about the music that they're digging into, like why they love DJing, and I'm just like, why don't I get to see you out and DJing all the time also? Like I want I want to see my I want to see like more and more of my friends out and DJing um and I think that like to create a space that is like specifically um I it was like I was trying to bring folks who were really like already kind of in the space of bringing music from the diaspora and celebrating who we are. And that is like bringing their full selves to their DJing. It's not like I'm a DJ and I'm also Asian. It's like I'm an Asian DJ and I'm also like bringing the Asianness to my DJing. Um, and I think that like this first year it was like primarily Asian diaspora. But what I'm really hoping for next year is that we're like going beyond Asia, because like I know that you're on my list of folks that I want to bring into the booth with me. Like my friend Tana does this amazing like her family has roots in Ethiopia, and she's did this like amazing Ethiopian coffee tasting paired with like Ethiopian jazz. And it's just like just celebrating who we are, having a space to celebrate that, and in one way, like being able to share music, but then also like meeting other people and like hearing other musics that I don't even know where I would get started with to like try to learn. And I just like I trust my friends. I trust my friends and their music taste and like what they grew up with. And I'm hoping that the block parties kind of like continue to be a space where we can celebrate um, all of ourselves through music, and also have a space to like learn about each other.
I mean, it just really empowers me just to find, such a beautiful and intelligent and just, really luminous person who's so deeply engaged with their culture. Especially in a time where we see so much just, I mean, whereas white supremacy has kind of forced its way into all of our existences, again, with, white DJs kind of leading the charge in terms of, just getting these larger or routine gigs. And I'm not knocking anybody making a living or anything like that, but oftentimes they get to sort of gatekeep other people's music, other people's cultures sometimes, and it can lead to a sort of rejection, I think, for people of the heritage of the culture to equally find space, I think, in that realm, in the more financially lucrative aspects of,
Yeah.
what we're focused on, but, or just within our own culture. And it really, it makes it harder to kind of, in a weird way, to like validate your purpose there. But that being said, I really just am so impressed by the space that you've carved out for yourself and other, diaspora DJs. And I really hope that it continues and it goes even further beyond.
Aw,
But what,
thanks.
I've been so like just incredibly, I don't know, grateful that you've also attended some of my programs.
Oh
And
yeah.
you don't limit yourself to, I guess, experiences that sort of people might dictate, just based on what you look like. You've embraced essentially a Black women's, um, series where I don't think it's necessarily I think it's speaking to the human narrative. But what is that like to kind of basically embrace a new cultural outlook, or a different cultural outlook? I won't say it's new because a lot of films I show.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel like every time I go go to one of the movie screenings or even just see the ones that are gonna play, even if I can't go, um, I mean, I'm always learning. I'm always learning about like so many new things that maybe I see similarities in or just like I think a lot of the times what I love about the movies that you screen is that it's not even just the movie itself, it's like your personal connection to that movie. It feels like every time I'm going to see anything that you're screening, it's like, oh, I'm about to go to Melissa's living room and like she's about to show me something that she watched at home or like has been so important to her in her life. And I feel like also tying that back to the DJing stuff too, it's like what I think is so important about like us being able to DJ our own music is like this is stuff that we grew up with at home. Like this is stuff that we have personal memories with that like people like white folks who are just like hearing like cool new music and like buying up all of these records and making everything hella expensive for people like it for them it's like to share this like new exotic stuff. But for us, it's like, no, I'm sharing my family, I'm sharing my home, I'm sharing the things that like have been really, really important to my upbringing and like who I am now. And I feel like every time I go to any of your screenings, I feel like I'm learning something new about you and like learning um like also like so many of the songs that I hear in Canto or just like in Chinese, like so many covers. And I for a while I was like um just really, really like hearing that so much of our music was coming from the Black community. Like so many covers, like clearly like the musical influences like do not just stay in one place. Like they go all over the world and then they get like reinterpreted and then like reinterpreted. And so I feel like every time I'm seeing what I feel like could be like a different outlook, is like, oh, I've seen like hints of this before in something that I've heard or that I've watched, and I'm just like, there are like there are connections there. It's not like I'm jumping into a whole different world. It's like there are, each time I'm trying to find those connections, like the connections to the people who are like putting these things on, the people who are making the films. And like when I went oh my god, like when I went to the Rockaway Films one by the beach and you played music videos, I was like, wow, this is like the most Melissa curated like film series I've ever like, I've ever imagined. Like if I had walked into this and not even known that it was you, I'd been like, oh, I feel like Melissa might have curated this. It just feels like I'm learning about you. I'm learning about like things that are important to you, and that helps me be better at all of the things that I'm doing, I think, and just be a better person and be a better friend, honestly.
It's I feel like everyone, or not everyone, I won't say that, but it's this is like for me curating these programs and even with music, like it's a therapeutic expression. Like it's just what I need to do to express basically what I'm feeling at that time. I mean, I've often said like I'm sort of letting people into my therapeutic an analysis session. There's a lot I'm going through, and it's usually on the screen. But really, I just try to engage in a way that I hope people can equally, have a similar sort of relationship or connection. That I've had for sure growing up. I know you came to the our song screening, I believe, right?
Oh, I love that one.
Yeah, I love. I mean, that movie is so special to me, and also just being able to build a relationship with the filmmaker since showing that program. Really, since I mean, he's definitely one of the earliest filmmakers of that generation that I've been able to, really build a solid relationship with. And thank you, Jim McKay. Shout out.
Yeah, I remember I think like half of the reason that I wanted to go to that one specifically was because I wanted to see the film, and the other half was like reading like what you wrote about the film, like to promo it. It was like this was like such a personal film for you, and I like wanted to experience it in the theater with you. I wanted to be a part of like knowing what baby Melissa like watching this film was like, it was I just wanted to like hang out with my friend and basically like watch movies with like that you grew up with. And I think that was a really really special movie, not just for the movie itself, but like the whole experience of it.
I feel like I almost cried at that screening just as I was kind of reading off that description because it was something that I came across at a very young age, and I was so jarred at seeing, just girls my age, literally my age, at the same with the same exact experience I was having, playing music in a band in high school, and having these just very adult kind of scenarios happen to them. I mean, I didn't necessarily experience like teenage pregnancy, but you know, just dealing with the dynamics of being in a band and music and having that relationship, and that really being the sort of place of solace. So, being struck by that, or being kind of walking into the movie, into the video store and seeing that for the first time. It was definitely like the first time I think I had seen a young black girl in a film. Like
Yeah.
I wasn't really like watching films like that. I mean, Blockbuster had just started, had just sort of been, coming out. Like I guess we went to my local neighborhood video store, but it didn't really, nothing really gravitated towards me that wasn't like Disney movies until I saw that, and then I was like, oh, like this is an art form, this is a guide, a human document, and a guide to be better humans. So, but I just think that is for artists to sort of um, just impress upon their own backgrounds and experiences into their art form. That's how the human connection is made, for sure. But I appreciate you coming out to that program. And
Yeah.
I'm curious actually also how you manage to bridge oral history with the dance experience.
Yeah. I'm trying to think like what even came first, because like to me oral history is like having conversations every day. Like that's how I teach oral history. It's like every day that I'm having conversations, I'm learning a little bit more about how to, be a better communicator, be a better friend. And that's to me what oral history is all about. It's like, how am I getting to know the people around me better? Am I having better conversations? Or am I like being better at having conversations, and so like a lot of the DJing stuff started with just like being around the neighborhood all the time, and talking to my family, and talking to my neighbors, and just being like, yeah, I really like music. This is like one part of me that like not a lot of people in Chinatown really see, because like a lot of people here know me like strictly, before I became a DJ, like everybody knew me for like the oral history and the storytelling stuff. Um, and so I was like, I'm pretty prone to like talking to anybody in the neighborhood all the time. Um, and I was like sharing with one of my neighbors. We were having lunch, and I was like, oh yeah, my dad gave me like a few of his records a while back, and they're all Chinese stuff. And he's like, you like music? And I was like, yeah, I like music. Like I love music. And he was like, oh, then you should take my grandfather's Chinese record collection. Like, I don't want to listen to it. And I have an extra turntable. I have a mixer for you. Like, you can now DJ for everyone. And I was like,
Oh,
oh my God, that just like, that escalated so fast. And I feel like that's also kind of how I really got into, um, like the dance world too, is like just just like showing up and being there just to dance, and then talking with the people that I kept seeing over and over again. I was like, okay, there's a reason that they're coming back all the time. um, it looks like I'm going to be here all the time too, because I love this space and I love to dance, so I might as well get to know the people around me. And then that's just like how I really started to get to know all the folks that I dance with now. And so I think like the DJing, the dancing, all of it comes with the oral history stuff, because I'm just like, I'm constantly talking to people. I want to know more. I don't want to be just like this random girl who flew in and moved to New York and is living like her own New York life. Like, there's an entire, like, there's generations of history here. And like, I want to know the place that I live in and then the place that I call home, because that's really like, it starts with listening, and it starts with wanting to learn. Um, and it has opened so many doors for me, from the DJing, from the dancing, to oral history, to like everything. Everything that I have now is thanks to like all of the people around me,
I just love
being
that.
very open.
I mean, I just love that because for so long I was actually I mean, I'm somebody who also studied history in college, and not finding sort of like archives and collections that I felt really, or black writers that I felt really helped to document like black history in a more personal way and less like a ethnological way. But when I came to collecting vinyl, I realized that so much of the history was documented through, these songs and this music, the actual experience of living in this life at that time, was captured through song and through music. So I just, and I'm sure it's almost identical, with a lot of the music and the songs that you play. It's funny because people don't really realize how important it is to actually receive, like, I don't know, almost like a journal or like a diary kind of like retelling of a person's life. And when I listen to like Lamont Dozier's "Going Back to My Roots," which is such a powerful love
Oh,
song,
yes.
that song just strikes me every time I hear it, especially is like Doug is dropping down the balloons, and that song just like reminds me that I'm not the only one going through this sort of existential or rebirth, and it's important for everyone, to sort of return to their roots, go back, to your core, and let that moment, or just let that sort of reinforce who you are. So no, I just, you equate, the oral history, especially through DJ, and then and largely it's a way to connect with our ancestors. Like, I often believe that our ancestors continue to talk to us and share with us, and basically telling us how to experience this life, and the people who are able to really rhythmically connect those dots are DJs who are equally archivists.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I relate to so much of that. I feel like, going back to my roots, like, that is like one of the songs that every time I'm like scream singing and dancing, like whenever it comes on. Because I just, oh, I feel like, I don't know, I relate to so much of like digging through archives and not really seeing not really seeing just like the personal stories, because it makes it feel like, oh, if I'm not like a super successful, amazing, accomplished person, like I don't belong in this like telling of history. Whereas I'm like seeing it happen every single day in my life. I see the people around me, I see them like doing incredible things that I admire, and from like making music to collecting music to even just like passing on this music. And um, I think that's where a lot of the DJing comes from. It's like every time I'm DJing, I imagine it as like a time portal. It's like, okay, we're gonna go back to whatever time like you heard this song first, or the other times that you've heard it, and like all of those memories are gonna come back with this song. And sometimes when I inherit record collections, people are writing like their initials, the date that they got the record, like where they got it, and it feels, and then like I've started doing this thing where I write my initials, like the date that I got it, and then the person that I got it from, and it's this like ongoing journal on the record itself. And you know, like every time the record plays, and there's like more and more memories that go with that record, and it feels like in DJing, like both of us are like continuing to catalog those histories. Even like even though it's not like we can't hold it, but you put the record on and you can just feel it. And um, I don't know. I think that's like going back all the way back to your first question of like, what is the importance of space? It's like having a place to make memories together, to like really be able to have a place where we can hear music together, where we can like watch movies together and think about um, like why are we here all together doing this thing, and how can we continue to do that into the future too.
I mean, you know, being together is a part of the human condition, which is why I'm pretty like strongly, not necessarily against, but I'm sort of just, I'm hard to convince that streaming is the way of the future. Like, it's, for me, it's not where the medium is meant to be seen. I don't even like the, like, it feels so much like a graveyard um of, of cinema. And
Yeah.
it, like, what I love so much about space and equally watching films, you know, with and it's not all my friends who come to the programs, but it is a lot of my friends who do come.
Same for the block parties.
But you know, what I love so much about being in space and watching films is hearing people laugh, you know, at a place I might not have like caught, or just the reaction, you know, people have. Like, I love so much of that, and I love even at the block parties or even on the dance floor. You know, there's not, it's one thing to just dance in front of your mirror at home, but it's such another to be around, you know, people, and absorbing their similar energy and vibration, you know. And I just love it. I love to be out with other people who love the music, you know, as much as I do, or love or admire a particular DJ and selector, you know, because
Yeah.
they are
I
able
even
to share their
remember
music.
like, yeah, I remember at the Rockaway series. I can't remember which music video was playing, but like there was a reference happening in the music video, and I was like, I don't know if I fully understood that. And then like even without me saying that, you leaned over and you were like, hey, this is like, I don't know if you know what that means, but like this is what that means. And I was like, I would have just watched that and been like, oh, okay, I guess like maybe I'll go look that up later. Maybe I'll forget about it. And then like to have you right there next to me and explain it without me even saying anything, like that made the whole thing like, that is what I love about space. It's like being able to like learn from each other and like build off of each other and experience it together.
I mean, I probably just pointed out one of my favorite parts of the video. It was just like, make sure you pay attention to this part because this is just the part that I'm like obsessed with. Hopefully it was um, I Can't Stand the Rain by Missy Elliott because watching that video, I'm not even gonna lie, watching that music video on a big screen around like just the
The
darkness.
trees,
I,
everything.
shout out to Rockaway Film Festival for having me there this last September. That was such a guilty pleasure program. And so many of the filmmakers who allowed me to, interpret their work in that space of water. And I'm still kind of floating on that program. So thank you so much for coming out.
Yeah, that one was so good. I loved it. I was like, it doesn't even matter that it's like the only frigid day this whole month. Like I'm going all the way out there. Like I'm going.
I
It was
definitely had some bad luck with that,
yeah.
with weather. Luckily, I mean, it could be worse if it was raining, but it was so cold that night. But we had actually a nice turn. I think mainly only my friends was at that particular one.
I was thrilled to be there. But then like the moment and then like right after the movie we went into to like dance and warm up. So it was like even though the weather didn't agree, like you still had a backup plan and you didn't even know that it was going to be that cold. Like we warmed up so fast and everybody forgot about how cold it was.
Oh yeah, I was, and then I know at the end I was definitely like, okay, let's go.
Yeah. Oh,
Well, I
yeah.
mean,
I mean, it's been like every series, like every Alfreda cinema screening that I've gone to, it's like it really does feel like I'm just, hanging out with you and watching movies that are really important to you. And that's like when I saw you come to the block party, I was like, oh my God, like I hope you get that same feeling that I get like when I go to watch movies with you. It's like now this is our Chinatown living room. So like come into our living room and I hope you feel like the family vibes too.
I love the block party. And I've often found so much inspiration in Chinatown. And it's kind of like a second. I'm also being so close to Metrograph. It's just inspired me culturally. Like I can't even express the importance of so many, people of different backgrounds to really learn about your own history and find empowerment in that. I was saying in my last just a chat with someone that the grass isn't always greener on the other side, and finding the richness of your own people's art or just the work that they've cultivated. It's a connection to your history and to your ancestors, and it's just so important to not forget the past. I mean, so many people talk about forgetting the past or like things like forgetting slavery. And when I hear stuff like that, I get so triggered because I'm like, how can you forget of, even if it was a horrific experience, for your people, you can't forget about it because, there was also moments, there's also moments to learn from. I mean, I believe so strongly in, knowing history so that it doesn't repeat itself. Um, because I mean, just that's just also preservation. The way that we can teach one another about how like say like how the river is running this way. Like it's like seasonal knowledge. But
Yeah.
I feel like I'm getting off on a tangent there.
Well, just to piggyback on that before we run off on a full tangent, I feel like I've been really thinking a lot about how just because we don't talk about it doesn't mean that like the impact of something doesn't continue to exist. Like I feel like I know that like within a lot of like Asian, like older families, like they don't want to talk about something traumatic, like they don't want to talk about their life before they moved here to the US because it was so traumatic and scary and that they don't want their kids to have those memories or like know about them. But it doesn't like, just because they don't talk about it doesn't mean that like the way that they treat people isn't like impacted by whatever that was that happened. Like I think for a lot of folks, they think that just by not talking about it, that it never existed, but it continues to exist in our bodies, and it continues to exist in the way that we interact with people. And so I don't think of history ever as the past. It's like it's still very much in the way that like our systems are structured, our bodies like interact with the world. So we might as well like dive into it and really know why it is our bodies are the way that they are reacting the way they are, and why our like structures are built the way that they are, so that we can like dismantle that from its core and not just like paint it nice and pretty from the outside.
Absolutely. I mean, what Bell Hooks says as far as self care and community, just I mean, self love within community, really love in community. I'm just kind of looking at the book All About Love, where or really Rock My Soul, where she talks about, the only way to heal communities is to go through the pain.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just want to, thank you again for joining me this evening, and thank our audience for also
Yeah.
tuning in. I actually have a double dose for you tonight. So I will be back on live
Woo!
in about an hour with my homie Zinab Lloyd, who is a wonderful filmmaker, and we're gonna have a beautiful conversation. But this discussion here with Rochelle will also be archived, so that you all can look back on. And please also support Rochelle's initiatives. Go to the block parties.
Yeah.
Go out. Go bring her lunch and don't make her don't have her buy a lunch if she's doing all this beautiful work.
Yeah, and also like come see movies with me, and come like I would love to continue. I'm excited to see all the things that you continue to curate, because I'm coming to your living, like I'm want to hang out in the living room always with you. So thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much. All right, you have
Yeah.
a wonderful night. Bye.
I'm in a sneak bag. They always talking about how we young people never try to do nothing but use dope and kill each other up in the streets. Then when we try to do something the way they say it's supposed to be done, they mess with us and try to shut us down.